All right, we're focused lesson 3. New groups arrive. In the 1650s, the Iroquois Indians of New York were in the Ohio country hunting beaver to trade with Europeans. Using guns, the Iroquois quickly defeated the few Native Americans who lived there. However, the Iroquois were not interested in settling the Ohio country. The few that did stay called themselves the Mingo. The first known description of Ohio's historic Native Americans came from a French priest in 1656. There are more than 30 villages whose people have never known Europeans moving to the Ohio country. By the mid 1600s, French, Dutch, and English paid the Iroquois a lot of money for furs, especially beaver. To hunt for more furs, the powerful Iroquois forced their way into the Ohio country to expand their hunting grounds. They soon attacked Native Americans like the four ancient people who had lived in Ohio for hundreds of years. These people were driven out of Ohio, says archaeologist Bradley Lepper. Where they went or if they came back, we simply do not know. So if we take a look, 1650, Iroquois hunters arrive in Ohio country. Then we have the 1700s, 1730s to be exact. Eastern Native Americans are forced into the Ohio country. And then 1750s, European settlers arrive in the Ohio country. Historic Native Americans. The six historic Native American or Indian groups of Ohio are the Mingo, Wyandotte, Delaware, Miami, Ottawa, and Shawnee. They are called historic because we have written records about their history. Some historians group Native Americans by their language families. The Mingo and Wyandotte spoke languages from the Iroquoian language family. The Delaware, Miami, and Ottawa and Shawnee spoke languages from the Algonquin family. In the early 1700s, growing waves of Europeans forced some of these groups off of their native lands and into what later became Ohio. The Delaware were pushed west from the New Jersey area by European settlers. The Shawnee were forced out of Pennsylvania and South Carolina. Other groups migrated to Ohio country because of the wars with the Native American groups. Some of the six historic Indian groups made alliances with different European groups. An alliance is an agreement between two or more people or groups to work together in doing something. For example, the Wyandot, whom the French called the Huron, were allied with the French because they had developed a friendship through trade. Their alliance stayed strong even during times of war. So it asks, what caused the six historic Native American groups to come to the Ohio country? Native Americans in the Ohio country lived off the land in different ways, spending depending on the season. In early spring, men cleared fields and planted crops like corn, beans, and squash. These three crops were so important to their lives that many Native Americans called them the Three Sisters. Storing food for the winter. In summer, women and children worked the crop fields while the men fished and hunted. In the falls, families went into the woods to gather nuts and roots to store for the long winter months. Fall was deer hunting season. Hunters waited in silence for deer to visit natural salt deposits called licks. During winter, the six historic Native American groups hunted thick furred animals such as bear and beaver. They often bartered these furs for tools and clothes at trading posts run by Europeans. In late winter, Native Americans made maple syrup. Sometimes this syrup was all they had to eat before finishing or fishing and planting began again in spring. So they lived off syrup, which probably wasn't terrible. During the four seasons, the six historic Native American groups showed respect for nature and members of their group. Read on this page the words of a Shawnee leader who reminded his people to show respect to others. Tecumseh, he was awesome, Tecumseh. Early 1800s, he said, "When you rise in the morning, give thanks for the light, for your life, for your strength. Give thanks for your food and for the joy of living." That was Tecumseh, right? What do you think Tecumseh meant when he said the joy of living? And you're going to answer that right here. Okay? Let's keep going. All right. Building a village. Native American villages in the Ohio country had two main types of homes, a longhouse and a wigwam. And they used teepees when they hunted, right? Both were dome shaped and made of wood. Builders used bent poles or tree trunks to make their frame. They then covered it with tree bark or mats made of cattails. Holes in the roof allowed smoke from the fire pits to escape. Iroquoian people like Wyandot lived in longhouses. Look at the diagram of a longhouse below. A normal longhouse might be about 50 feet long, right? So there it is. And you can see they show the inside here. Isn't this cool? Right? Very cool. Oop. 50 feet long. Larger longhouses stretched several hundred feet and housed up to 20 families. Round single family homes were called wigwams. They were easier to heat than longhouses. Even groups that lived in longhouses most of the year often switched to wigwams in the winter. Look at this. This is why did the activities of Native Americans in Ohio country change this with the seasons? You click on that and it'll take you where you need to go. Okay. All right, so there that is. When you click on it, it'll take you there. All right. Family life. Family life among Native Americans was often similar from group to group. Men hunted and fished and cleared fields for planting and fought in wars. Women planted and harvested crops, gathered nuts, and trapped small animals. Sometimes men and women did the same jobs, such as, caring for children and cooking. Everyone wore clothing made of buckskin or fur. That changed after Europeans began trading cloth clothing for Indian furs. Many groups, like the Shawnee, added feathers and beads to their new colored cloth shirts. A council of elders made key decisions for the group. A council is a group of people who meet to talk and make decisions. Those who dislike a ruling by a chief or council were free to leave the group. Ceremonies and festivals. Native Americans celebrated important events and religious occasions with big ceremonies and festivals. For all groups, fall harvest time was one of the biggest yearly events. Several groups, like the Shawnee and the Wyandot, celebrated the Green Corn Dance. This festival lasted for several days. The Delaware called their harvest festival the Big House Rite. Like the Green Corn Dance Festival, it included dancing, feasts, and storytelling. What kinds of decisions do you think the council made? And you're gonna type that right in here, right? Okay. We talked about this the other day. This is a chart of historic Native American cultures. Delaware, they did the longhouse. Miami, they did the log homes. Mingo did longhouses. Ottawa did wigwams. Shawnee, longhouse and wigwams. Wyandotte, longhouse, right? So you can look at the chart to get even more information, but I want you to answer each of these questions here. Okay? So it says, which group migrated to the Ohio country from the south? And you can see which group celebrated the Green Corn Dance, right? We would have to, British lands, French land. I don't know how you would find that out. I guess that was written up there. It's written up there. Why do you think the Delaware had an alliance with the British, right? Where's the Delaware? Right there. Oh, I see. Look where they came from, right? Look where they came from, right? All right. Economy. The 6 historic Native American economies were based on farming and trade. The 3 sisters of corn, beans, and squash were grown both for food and for trading with other groups. Another part of their economies was the fur trade. At the time, beaver skin hats had become very popular in Europe. The money to be made from furs caused many Native Americans to become trappers. Native Americans also traded other furs, such as buckskin. In fact, calling a dollar a buck comes from the price of a buckskin during this time. In return for their furs, Native Americans received goods like clothes, tools, and guns. Trading greatly changed in the way Native Americans lived. In time, they came to depend on European goods, which changed their way of life. And it says, how did trade with Europeans change the way of life of Native Americans in Ohio country? And you're going to answer that right here. Okay? All right, down here it says focus lesson review. I'm going to read all these questions for you, all of them. Focus questions. How did Native Americans use resources to survive? That's number 1 here. Okay? Vocabulary. Write 1 paragraph about the 6 historic Native American groups. Use these vocabulary terms in your writing. You're going to write that paragraph right in here. And number 2. Okay? Economics. Describe the economies of Native Americans in Ohio country. How did they work? What did they do? Critical thinking and problem solving. Explain how Native Americans in Ohio country solved their need for shelter. We know that, don't we? Types of houses did they have? You'll click the link here. That'll take you to where you need to go. Okay? You guys got it? All right. So there it is. I'll stop this right now.